Well, I guess I'm the only one here for now.
Hi, Jay.
Nagel,
Yep.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. I had the opportunity to see you at Micro K-12.
Oh,
Thought
yeah.
that your presentation was awesome. So
Sure.
thank you for all the work and the sharing that you're doing there.
Yeah, no problem.
So hi, my name's Jared, and I'm the Port Angeles School District, way out the end of the peninsula out here. Um, I work in the tech department with Jack. He's in this with us too.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
I don't know if you have an agenda for this
We
breakout session.
do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Travis
okay,
put together some slides for us to work off of. So,
cool.
Is there only us five? Oh, no, six. We
looks like it.
all
Yep.
right. Can everybody see the slide deck, or am I?
Yep, I can see it.
All right, perfect. Well, let's get started. We can make this fairly quick too. Let's see. Many of you might have individualized questions as well, so we'll go from there. I'm looking for the recording button at this moment.
I think I already pushed it.
Woo! Chris is the man. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Appreciate it. So just quick introduction. I'll introduce myself. Chris might have already introduced himself. I'll start with mine. I'm Travis Rush. I'm the AEST Technology Education Lead. I also was a very small district ed tech director and teacher for many, many years in Eatonville School District. So I have a lot of experience of crossing over with our IT department, as there was two IT department and me. So the rollout of tech and IT is very personal to me because it affects a large group in a small district with a big impact. So that's my experience. Chris, go ahead.
Sure. So I'm Chris Egel, the Executive Director of Digital Learning for the Peninsula School District in Gig Harbor. We're a district of about 8,700 kids now. I've been here for 17 years. I was in Bethel School District for 7 years before that. I'm kind of the guy that's worked himself up from the bottom, I guess. The easiest way to talk about that. My first job at Bethel School District was printing report cards and financial reports on the old VAX mainframe system, the predecessor long before Skyward was around. And so I've just kind of worked my way up from there. I did go to Wazoo and studied computer science and then ended up at Bethel somehow. We've been doing a lot of work with AI here in our district and been talking about it a lot. So happy to share kind of some of that and things to think about as you're looking to expand AI in your district and what you can do from the technology department standpoint. So
Thank you, Chris. So honestly, when we began this series, one of the rubs or irritations that I've always had in curriculum side of things and is that IT departments are often left out of the conversation. And often what it transpires in teaching and learning is they look at material, they look at access, and they buy, and then they go to IT and say, can you make this work? Our district, my former district that I worked at, the infrastructure alone after 14 years had to be updated and things be handled. Our IT department 20 years ago or 15 years ago was still a paid by the hour individual whose job was to go fix things in a building. IT departments now, depending on your size district, are really I look at them as the center of the school to make everything operate. But oftentimes districts still leave them in silos. And one of the issues we'd like to really address today is how, when your district is moving to utilizing AI tools, are you, as your department, included in or get yourselves into those conversations as to how to help the implementation or make it easier? So our purpose today is to discuss the importance of uniting technology departments and teaching and learning departments. So, Chris, anything to add to that real quick? Or
no, it's I have a lot of different experiences, but we'll kind of dig into those because we've done it multiple ways here in this district, and so we're on a a new experiment this year even. So we'll see how it goes.
And feel free, guys. There's only 6 of us in here. Feel free to jump in and interrupt or ask a question. We can make this very informal if you'd like. Size districts. Port Angeles, you're what size are you?
We're about 3,500 kids.
3,500?
Yeah.
Okay. I see a Clay. Everybody else, are you guys districts or areas of content? Where are you from?
Well, this is Clay. I'm working the technology services, sort of centralized IT services.
Okay.
Spokane Public Schools, we're about 31,000 students.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you guys are large. Yes. And Makoa, you're
Yep.
ESD 113, correct?
112.
Or 112, pardon me. Yes.
Director at 112. So service all the districts in the area.
Yes. So for many of you from the larger districts, especially, my assumption is many times the connection between your learning department and your IT department are not really even relevant or not there. The connections are very slim, or it goes through a cabinet or sub-cabinet organization all the way up and then back down. One of the first things I wanted to address when we talk about a communication tree to be a department is intent. It is important that when you're discussing a product or system that uses AI, that the intent from the Department of Teaching and Learning is to communicate that and the use of the tool. It's very, very important that when they start looking at different items, they talk to the IT department about the intent of its use. That usually can help IT departments very often craft or look at the tools that might help, I guess better would be the right word, than something initially that the curriculum department is looking at. Oftentimes too, curriculum departments often do not even know or understand the infrastructure that is going on in the IT department, or if the tools they're looking at will even work in the infrastructure that's being looked at. So what's the desired outcome that can be achieved by the product or tool? I really do believe that IT needs to know what the desired outcome is that a teaching and learning department is looking for, because IT might have a better suggestion that might give you a better outcome. How do the two parties decide if that outcome reaches the measure that were decided? Do you guys have a conversation back and forth on data production? Is the tool getting what you need to get out of it? And is the intent for a learner, educator, or administrator, or a combination? The IT tools you're looking at might vary based on, are they for an adult, which level, which department? Because many concerns still arise around data. Okay. Chris, feel free to jump in if you'd like. I could talk for hours, so.
Sure. No, so yeah, I would say, here in Peninsula, we've got, 'cause everybody has a different experience, and I think we're living different experiences constantly. We started out like many people, and teaching and learning and technology didn't talk at all. Like there were no conversations or very few conversations if any. And that kind of is my fault as much as anybody else, but because it's been my show for almost 10 years now here. But about 5 years ago now, our superintendent came to me and he said, you know what, I don't want a technology department anymore. He said, go and talk to Melissa, who was the woman that was head of teaching and learning at the time, and said, the two of you need to figure out a new department and you're all together, so go figure it out. We're not going to have one or the other. And so we actually created a Department of Learning and Innovation, which was the merging of technology, teaching and learning, research and assessment, professional development, and curriculum, kind of all in one big group. And I think at one point we were up to about 30 people collaboratively between all of the departments that had merged together. And so while that's not a realistic thing that's going to happen in most districts, it did bring about a lot of collaborative work back and forth between teaching and learning and technology, to the point now where our current superintendent just broke that up this last year. And so we're back to separating a teaching and learning department and technology again. But I think the benefits are there. The work that we did in the 4 years that we were together kind of leads us to a good path forward where we're collaborating. For us, we get so many of our requests don't actually come from teaching and learning. They come from the classroom, and they come to us because we've implemented, we we have an approval process that we've built, where teachers have to fill out a big old form, saying, what do you need it for? What are you going to do with this? What are what's the privacy policy? What are the terms of service? And then some more technical details, like what does SSO look like for this product? Who's going to pay for it? What are budget codes? Where is it all going? And we've gotten our teachers pretty trained on that now. Like, we don't allow anything that doesn't go through that form first. So, but now we've come to a point where we actually need to go back to teaching and learning and say, hey, this is coming out of the classroom. Is this educationally what you want happening? And so, we're kind of building that piece in as we go now. It's not coming, new products and new solutions aren't always coming from teaching and learning. A lot of times they come from the schools. And so, just working as a team, and, we fired off a lot this year, or I have, saying, hey, do you guys know that, teachers that want to use this, or schools that are trying to use this? And then it gives teaching and learning also the opportunity to say, you know what, that's not in our instructional plans. That's not in our instructional strategies. We're not going to move forward with that. Or, and not just teaching and learning, sometimes it's student services as well. Those things come through special education or student services, and, this is something that they should have a better handle on. And, we're the gatekeeper of it right now, but being able to bring all of those departments into the process and building out a process. It doesn't matter to me so much which direction it goes, if it goes to teaching and learning first or technology, as long as all of the departments are working together on it, you can get there. And I think that's critical when we start talking about some of the AI stuff that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Chris is such a wealth of knowledge, guys. I'd love to, since there's a few of you here, if you have any individualized questions too about your particular district. I'm not trying to put them on the spot, or things you're engaged in. Is there anything about what he said that you have a question for him on, about process or needs or anything else? Practicing my wait time. All right. That's awesome. Thank you. Actually disappointed that your department got broken up. That's actually my dream is to have ed and tech all in one day. That's great. So after you understand intent, it's really important to be on the same page of use. Many times, curriculum departments or teaching and learning departments have an idea of use in mind, and they really want IT departments to jump the hoops to make it happen. It's really important to investigate the tool and the programs that will work well with your existing systems. That helps save money. Many times too, as well, there's a money issue involved. What tool is best for the use, for the intent? And then, does it even support, or does it impact your structures you have in place? Again, we're talking about, when you're talking about data storage, students' data, what programs are you buying? And with AI especially, the entire data piece cannot be overlooked. It's I can't speak to as much as Chris, as he's in the trenches with that at this moment, but what are we doing with data and where is it going? Do you have the capacity for the tool in question even that you're going to use? So, and I think we'll address that here at the end when we talk about some tools and so on. And the last big piece in general would be needs. Once you have the intent and the use, what are the needs? Are there data considerations that you need to occur? Communication with teaching and learning regarding of training levels, use of potential costs, creation of a review process. When you guys create something with teaching and learning, or if teaching and learning comes and wants an AI tool, who is doing the training on that AI tool? Again, data, information, who's getting the staff on board with what it can be used for and when and for what purpose. As Chris has talked about too, rolling out any kind of contracts with students or permission slips. What is that process, and also of educating community members? IT departments get left out of these things, but a lot of times they come back to affect your job, okay, or our department in general, okay? Chris, you have anything to add to that as well, or?
Yeah. I was going to tell a story a little bit about something we're actually working through right now, and it's it kind of ties the last slide into this one as together, and we're in the process of evaluating, do we have a need for a new data system, kind of a data warehouse, data visualization tool. And we're looking at a bunch of different things. And one of the things I encourage, technology leaders to look at is, you're the person that actually understands how the data moves around. You're the person that understands how the data can be used. I've kind of had to put my foot down a little bit this year on one of the solutions because I don't know that if we pick that solution that we're going to actually get access to the data that's in it. It makes great, pretty little dashboards, but they don't give us access to the data behind the scenes. And so as you start to look at the way the world is going in regards to the possibilities of using generative AI in data analysis, there are some really fascinating things happening and very close to being doable in a school district right now, as far as allowing people to ask plain text general questions of data sets and getting answers back that tell you exactly what you're looking for. And if you're not thinking about things like that when people are looking to implement data systems, you're going to struggle when it comes down the road, and you're thinking, boy, it would be great if we could just tie our database to a chatbot and ask it questions. If you haven't done the work behind the scenes of ensuring that you get full access to that data, whatever data system that there's purchased, you're gonna run into problems. And so that's helped us kind of, at least here, narrow down to, of the 4 choices, 2 of them are great at this. One might be okay, and one probably isn't okay. And so we have to figure out, is that going to be the line that we hold? Is it, you have to allow us access to our data? I think it is going to be the line we hold. And that's going to knock out one of the products, which they've done an amazing job of building their UI, but if they don't give us the data behind the scenes, it doesn't do us any good on the rest of the problems that we have. So
That's awesome. Questions for Chris at this time again? I can speak a little bit to a smaller district's process in that regards. And capacity of staffs make a large difference. In a smaller district, we had a teaching and learning rep at each building, and whose role was to investigate or look at curriculum for the next year to pilot and bring back to a committee and discussion and everything else. Any workshop that those individuals would go to, or places they would go to investigate curriculum, if there was a workshop or a meeting or a session, we would send a IT person with them. Again, our department was very small, so they had direct connection to what was being used and everything else. But the idea is to be able to look at the material being used through 2 different lenses. And it was valuable because the right questions aren't always asked when it's left up to an individual person in a decision-making tree. So for us, that worked very well, was sending 2 people to look at 2 different lenses and how it worked. Going back to Chris' idea of data. If we are looking at buying an online material and our teaching and learning person is having the conversations with the vendor and they're down the rabbit hole, then you have to back up and ask, what's our access to that data? What are these? Now you've delayed the process potentially as well. So here would be what I would have considered the overall questions to ask in a IT department of materials being looked at is, what procedures do you need to create to modify to evaluate AI tools? Do you have currently on board? I know our district, the district I left, we had just created them. Are there approval processes for apps? Or signing up for apps or getting apps pushed to computers? What is your platform and how do people get those requests? Do you approve your AI tools? If an AI tool is being used even by a teacher to plan or organize, and then also what's that contract language look like? Because those are issues. How you evaluate the AI tool that has been integrated in already approved tools? How do you evaluate to make sure it's effective? Is it working? Is it worth the investment you're putting in as to what the workload is to keep things safe? How will you ensure that data is not collected regarding privacy rights? Again, how are you going to make sure that the data is secure? What's your policy on AI detectors? And can you ensure accuracy? Okay. Do you have AI detectors? Okay. Are they working? Okay. And do you have any current connections or meetings with teaching and learning? Do you have any of those already in place? So these are overall questions to possibly consider. Chris, do you have any other questions that they may want to consider when they're talking about AI and integrating in general?
I would encourage people, and I'll put this in the chat. I think the chat goes to just this group.
Yes.
Take a look at the there's a lot of guidance that has come out, from different organizations, but this one that came out from COSIN and the Council of Great City Schools around a generative AI readiness checklist, I think is applicable quite well, at least the second half of it. A lot of the first half is kind of leadership questions, which could be beneficial in your district for sure. But the second half kind of deals with data security, data privacy, and some of those questions that you should think about answering. I know we have gone through this twice now in our district, and I just sat down with my engineering team last Friday or Thursday, and talked through this stuff so that as we're actually working on our cybersecurity plan right now. We want to make sure that the things that we add into our cybersecurity plan are also preparing us for what is some of these things around generative AI and what does that look like? What does data privacy and data security look like when we talk about AI as well? So I would encourage you to just kind of keep an eye on these things and take a look at this one from a technical standpoint. I think is really good. They have some other guidance. The state guidance that just came out doesn't speak a ton to technology. It really kind of talks about, what are you making sure that you're following your own policies and procedures in place for evaluating applications for their security and their data privacy, and how is the use of AI in those. And so I would, take a look at that, but this goes into a little bit more in depth if you'd like something a little bit more structured to look at.
May I ask the participants in the breakout room, where are your respective districts or areas in terms of using AI and AI tools across your district in general?
This is Clay in Spokane. So, ours it's kind of somewhat, I'll say kind of takes a life of its own as people begin to explore, the graph they presented at the kind of the beginning of people are starting to dabble in it and play with it to learn about it, and to learn what their students are capable or how they can use it as an instructional tool. Operationally, there's people who are starting to use it. Stumbled into through some meetings, because we do have various meetings with teaching and learning and special ed. One of the issues that kind of raised our eyebrow to us that we didn't really think about was our special ed group is using it to write IEPs, which is great up until the point where we discovered they were actually uploading real student data about students into it. It's like, whoa, no. You can don't put that's private information you're now pumping into a system that will mine it for future purposes. So we had to set some parameters around that and get them to understand how the technology functions. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say taking a life of its own. We're kind of putting some guidance. We've had to write some policy around that sort of that conversation with the special ed kind of creating some policy around what we can and cannot, inject into that system to get your answers back or to get some
You got muted.
I did realize I got bumped my keyboard.
That's okay.
Yeah, we do have conversations with teaching and learning on a regular cadence. That's helpful, and that's how we kind of became aware of what was going on and how they were using it, which is a great idea, but that it's providing that guidance and policy around it.
Your special education example is fantastic, because I know a lot of special education teachers individually have found, I believe it's called Magic Schoolhouse or Magic. I don't want to
Magicschool.ai.
Magicschool.ai, and they finally just released a paid level, I believe, that they lock all the data down. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I heard last minute.
We just signed the contract Friday.
Did you? Okay.
Okay.
So that's a great example, though, of if IT had known that was up and coming and on its way,
Right.
or was
Mhm.
available, it solves a lot of problems down the road, and potentially financially is like, is it even a viable option? Or do you have to come up with something different? Because if your whole department starts relying on it, and then it comes to you later. Now, you may not be in charge of the budget aspects of it, but now you're incurring a cost that maybe you don't need to occur if there's another option. And again, then you have the storage
Right.
and the data. So that's a great example. That has been a large one. People putting in special education data. It's because it's a fantastic tool. If you've never played with that particular program, it's fantastic. So
What's that called again? Can you remind me? What was the name again? You called it
Chris, go ahead. I can't remember.
Magicschool.ai.
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 We just got it too.
I've never heard of it. I'm going to take a look.
Have you had pretty good run-ins with the company and so on? Not that we're promoting them, not I have to say that out loud, but has it been pretty easy, Chris, to
It's been easy to go through working with them so far. For us, we've been kind of sharing it with teachers throughout this whole school year, and it gotten to the point where when they introduced the paid version, that kind of takes away a few of the features, which it's not bad. Like most of the stuff is still there in the free version. Our teachers were really kind of floundering. Like, I use that piece, like I need that piece. So what can we do? And so we're trying to come up with something that's easy as like a place for teachers to get started. There's differing opinions on whether this is the right way to teach people how to use generative AI tools, but because it takes away all of the thinking about how to prompt and ask a question, because it just does it for you. Like, do you need a choice board? All right, you go and click on the button that says choice board. Then it asks you the topic and the standard you're teaching, and you type those in, and it gives you a choice board or a rubric or lesson plans or whatever. They don't have to think through a whole lot about what do they want to do with that. So, but I think for us, it's a good getting started piece to get teachers in, especially the hesitant ones that haven't wanted to jump in on, just going in and asking ChatGPT or Bard or Claude or Perplexity or any of the others questions. So,
and I believe it's primarily targeted for special education. Am I wrong in that? Or primarily is
it's
it
targeted
yeah.
for all teachers.
It's targeted for all, okay.
Yeah, it does a nice job. It does have like an IEP writer. Like, it
Yes.
has other things in it that are geared for special education teachers,
Okay.
but and it'll offer you answers considering things like universal design for learning to make sure that
Yes.
you integrate those into your lessons as well. And so there's some really great stuff there. But it is for everybody. It's not just it, and there's great things for special ed too. So
Yes. Yeah, I do remember when we came out to your district, it was played with a little bit. It had a really great tool of like helping with inclusionary practices for a teacher that might be struggling with tiered instruction in a classroom. So
How do you implementing using this Magic School as a district-wide thing? How do you guys deal with like the stigma of anti-AI and I don't know, and just being afraid of technology in general, because we have a lot of aging teachers that are afraid.
in my career, I've spent so many hours trying to figure out how to deal with that. And we're taking a whole different route this time on AI. We're going at our first early adopters, and then we're going at our next. We're just leaving them right now. We're leaving them alone, letting them, the people that are technology phobic or whatever. I'm just kind of leaving them to where they are right now, because I really want to build and power and strengthen the people that are really interested to do it now. That's not what I've historically done in my career. I've always wanted to try and get everybody on board, but we're going at this a different way, and I think it's working well for us to just focus on the people that are really interested right now, and we'll come back and hello.
Hello.
There's some people I know. Hi, Kevin and Jennifer. I was Jennifer, I was chatting back and forth via email with Rachel when somebody shared her video in the chat. And so I sent her right back immediately, said, well, we're talking about you here in Washington. So
Yeah, I pinged her on Discord. I said, there's that video again.
yeah, that's kind of what she came back with. It's that video.
No, it just goes to show you, you put it out there and it's
Yep.
there forever.
All right, are we all here?
Yeah.
All right, looks like we have a pretty small group again. That's great. Before Chris and I introduce ourselves, will the rest of you would be willing to tell us where you're from or in the relative size of your district? Or if you're willing to, that'd be great. Kind of give us an idea of our people we're talking to and maybe some of your needs. I'll start with Jennifer there. It looks like Auburn.
Yeah, Jennifer Clauser. I'm from the Auburn School District and really just working on my continuous learning around this topic. So that's where we're at, we're like 18.5 or so as a district. And we're doing our policy procedure work now. So really just working on, what kinds of tools can we support with fidelity and just help people understand, what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. And then settling down our tech folks just to say, look, it's okay.
Well, I don't mean to put everybody else on the spot, but would anybody else like to share where they're from, size, or if they're part of IT or teaching and learning?
Sure. So I'm Martina Sue, and I am the technology director at Ferndale School District.
Oh, yeah.
We're a smaller district. I think we have about 4,500 students. We are looking to enable high school students to use ChatGPT or generative AI in the second semester. So right now I'm working with teaching and learning on crafting kind of our communication and the teacher toolkit. So we're actually going to borrow Chris Hagel's from the Peninsula for kind of our verb, communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Would anyone else like to share?
Hi, my name is Kevin Ikeda. I'm with Puget Sound ESD 121, and I'm here to do continued learning because we want to support districts with Chris leading the way in our ESD and be able to support him in multiple ways. So I'm a learning journey.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. I don't have to put anybody else on the spot. We'll just go on. I'll give you a little info about ourselves. Chris, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. For those of you I haven't met before, I'm Chris Hagel. I'm the Executive Director of Digital Learning for the Peninsula School District in Gig Harbor. We've been down this AI journey for a while now. I've been here in Peninsula for about 17 years, and I was in Bethel School District for about 7 years before that. So I've been doing this for quite a while now here in the Puget Sound area. And so just happy to share some of the things that we've done, as well as some of the resources and ideas that are out there across the country.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm Travis Rush. I'm the AESD Technology Education Lead. Relatively new to this position overall, but I was a 20+ year veteran of a very small district, Eatonville School District, based in Mount Rainier. But I was the ed tech director and worked hand in glove with the curriculum department on everything from bringing our infrastructure up to becoming a Google reference district. So I laughed when they had to tell me I had to learn what a gigabyte was, but I had to figure all that out while I was doing teaching and learning. So hopefully Chris and I make a good team for you as we've kind of been through those different areas of unifying a district together and moving in the right direction. So, all right. By the way, if you have any questions, there's only 6 of us in this room, 7 of us in the room. Jump in and ask. Some of you may have came with specific questions that you'd like to know, especially given Chris's expertise of walking his district through a lot of this. I would hate to step on your opportunity to ask a very specific question while you have him here. He may not have the answer, but I'm sure he probably could steer you in the direction of someone who might. So, okay. Can you guys all see my screen? Thumbs up there. Can you see that? Hope so. Chris, we good?
You're good.
All right. So we're really going to look at use, intent, and needs. How teaching and learning departments and IT departments really need to begin working more closely together. Looking at what you guys have already done. Some of you sound like you're crossing over already. Ferndale looks like you're looking at already starting second semester in regards to some chat GPT, what that might look like. So hopefully those conversations have already begun across departments. This is something relatively new to me. Again, from a small district, our departments were side by side. We didn't really have a separate department. Teaching and learning and IT were together by default. It was almost just because of necessity. But some of you may be in very siloed areas, especially the larger your district gets. And that inherently causes some interesting problems. And AI is moving so fast, it's hard to be on the same page with each other. So kind of what we have today is some suggestions that might help and kind of just some processes if you haven't been through it. The first thing, guys, is to kind of make sure you understand the intent of what each department's doing. A lot of times cabinet level meets, they assess, discuss, it goes out to sub cabinets and meetings and then down to different departments to discuss the intent. If you're adopting an AI tool, I really hope that you get a chance to reach out to either teaching and learning, or if you're in teaching and learning, you reach out to AI or reach out to your IT department and discuss what your intent is with that tool. What are you trying to use AI for? And I think that intent's really, really helpful to get IT on the ground floor with, or each other's departments on, because there's usually different suggestions or potential problems that you may not think of when you're in a different department. What's the desired outcome that you want that tool or product to do? How do the two parties decide if the outcome that it reaches the measures that were desired? Did you want an outcome? And then what measure are you looking at for that success? So is it the correct tool to even have used in the first place? And is the intent for the learner, an educator, administrator, or a combination? A lot of times when we're talking about AI or any tool use, there's different levels of what we're talking about. Is it on the learner end? Is it on the educators as a teacher? Is it an administrator? Is it in your financial department? What is the tool you're looking at? So, Chris, do you have some things to add to that as well?
Yeah. We talked about this in the other breakout room, but
Sure.
in our district, we've had lots of iterations of how technology and teaching and learning work together, from the fact that years and years ago, we never talked, to then about 5 years ago, we had an interim superintendent at the time, and he called me into his office and said, I don't want a technology department anymore. So go and sit down with the head of teaching and learning and figure out what you guys want to be called, because you're merging your departments together. And that, surprisingly, that actually worked really well. We were combined the Department of Learning and Innovation for about 4 years, where that was the mix of teaching and learning, research and assessment, curriculum, professional development. CTE actually was in there too. And we had a department of approximately 30, and for a small district, that's a giant department, or a medium-sized district, I guess is what we would be kind of considered. So that worked really well, because we had about 4 years to just, develop processes and develop policies on how we work together and shared back and forth around adopting technology tools, or when they would do curriculum adoptions, what are the things that they would put on their evaluation sheets, because those were things that that I had, I or my team had asked them to look for. this last summer, our superintendent broke the department apart again. So we're back to having a separate teaching and learning department and a separate technology department. Kind of goes with the territory of, superintendents want to run their district their own way. And so we just adapt. But the beauty is that we still have all of those relationships from working together, and we have those procedures and those policies. We kind of talk about, or we had talked about in the last session, how, in a perfect world, teaching and learning, comes up with a new thing that they want to bring to the district. And that isn't always the case of how it goes actually in our district. And I'm sure in many of your districts, a lot of things come up from the classroom, or they come up from a specific principal who's decided in their school they want to use such and such product. And so we have built out an approval process on a data privacy and data security kind of aspect. And before, we would just kind of knock on the door, teaching and learning, who was sitting right next to us, and say, hey, what do you think about this? Now we're not quite as close, but we still just do it. We do it the same way. And so this year, actually, we've declined a lot more applications from the teaching and learning side than we have the technology side. So people still request to us first, but then we bring in teaching and learning, and they say, hey, is this something that you guys actually want as part of our instructional strategies in the district? And then they'll say, yeah, you know what, we already have 4 tools that do that, and we really only want one. We're not adding a 5th, so let's just deny it. So those relationships are critical when you talk about as we start looking at what's coming down the pipe for generative AI tools, which are coming everywhere. So
You guys have any
Could
questions?
I have a question about that?
Absolutely.
I work at Kent, and so we've gone through a couple of reorgs as well. And so that's been a huge portion of that is like we're combined as a team, and then we're separate again, and then we're combined again. And so the relationship structure has had some rifts throughout the past couple of years. How do you get around teaching and learning feeling like the decisions that are made are in support of technology versus in support of teaching and learning? How do you, I mean, this kind of goes into that.
I have always been a person who I would rather adapt on the technology side to support something that they know is going to work instructionally in the classroom than force them to use something that's not going to work in the classroom. I don't have a lot of non-negotiables. There's very few anymore. But there are some that you just have to stick with on the technology side. But for the most part, if it means we have to adapt and adjust on what we do technology wise, we're going to adapt and adjust to the teaching and learning staff before we're going to force them to adapt and adjust to what we want on the infrastructure side. So that's kind of how I've always looked at it. I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but
It's a great start. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit from oh, is she still there? Oh,
yeah.
there she is. Oh, you dipped down and it got fuzzy, so I thought maybe you were gone. A little bit again, smaller districts, much easier in this regard than something of the size of Kent, I would assume. But even if your departments are not together to go through reorganization, what does your structure look like when decisions are made? Meaning, we were talking about this last session a little bit too. If there's a workshop for teaching and learning over a new product they're looking at, can an IT rep or a member go with them, to that organization? Is that capable? What is again the intent on a product being shut down? So in larger districts, a lot of times, or even smaller ones, you'll see a reaction, something's released, and it's automatically shut off until there's a plan or it's not allowed. What's the communication process out to the stakeholders of why? And then what's the process of evaluating that tool so you're giving those people hope? I hate to say that, but in my opinion, that is true. That a lot of decisions are made based on safety through IT and through tools and access and else, and that does affect teaching and learning. But you have to find partners within that department, even on levels below the admin level of the quote worker that establish those relationships of the whys and the intent. So that's another suggestion, is finding those avenues, going to workshops, learning those tools, and also making, it goes back to my next one, is use, making suggestions back. If there's a tool that teaching and learning really wants, or a teacher really wants, a building really wants, maybe it's not the most effective tool, or at least in your opinion, but can you make suggestions back of one that does work with the infrastructure or system you have? Don't leave them hanging. I've always believed that I'm right there with Chris, is even in an IT department, very small, we were never a no. We were always a yes if we can make it work. And if not, what are the alternatives? We really bit off the idea of customer service. We had a turnaround time, we had all kinds of things, but the main one was also making suggestions. So that's my second one on the slide here too, is use. Investigate tools and programs that will work well with existing systems. What tools and programs support or do not impact structures? I'm assuming you've probably all had a building that wants something that is an absolute no because it doesn't work with, I'll give you a great example in our district, was iPads for kindergarten. They all wanted iPads for kindergarten, and we're a Google reference district, and in a small district, it's very difficult to run multiple platforms of items based on the skill level of our IT department and everything else. So we had to investigate a different tool for kindergartners than iPads. So we took a kindergarten teacher we went to micro K-12 to their event in up in the casino. Yeah, to the casino in Tulip. And we investigated a Google product or a tablet that would work the same potentially as an iPad. Because many times those instructors don't necessarily want the iPad. They want something that does the same access or ability. So that would be my suggestion as well with that. Chris, do you have anything to add to that real quick? Or
one of the things that I've done in my career is, I studied computer science in college, and then I've always worked on the IT side. I was never a teacher. So I've had to spend a lot of my own professional development learning about instruction, and understanding instruction, and what does instruction look like, and what does good instruction look like, because that allows me to be better informed when I'm helping to provide suggestions. When our district started our work with Universal Design for Learning 4 years ago, I was there at every single professional development event. I went to all of the trainings. I spent 8 days the first year and 10 days the second year going to PD around Universal Design for Learning, so that I understood right alongside with the teaching and learning staff, what this looked like. And then I can transform it into, once I get a handle on the instructional strategy, I can transform that into technology solutions that work. But I need to be able to be there in the room and understand those conversations, so that I can give people those answers that they need. And so that's something I would encourage you to get yourself a part of. If you're not, is get yourself into those trainings and those professional developments as they look at new instructional strategies, even if you've never been a teacher.
that is a great point, Chris. It's great. Chris and I come from two different worlds. I was a K-8 ed major that went this direction, randomly, and became a curriculum director and all those things. And I had to learn literally about servers and infrastructure because we were so small that there was only 2 IT people that were fix-its, and then me with curriculum instruction. And that's great, because I did the same thing the opposite way. Is I went with my IT guys to and a lady to everything involving infrastructure and what the impact of data is, data storage, volume, safety concerns, and those kind of things. And I think it's really important to find those partnerships, even if your departments are separate. That's very, and thank you, Chris, for coming to teaching and learning things. That's epic. So it's, and that kind of does bring us to our third slide, like needs. When you're launching something, it's really important. A lot of times we launch or we use an item and we don't roll out the need or the access, and we don't have training. An individual in the last group asked us, how do you get the unwilling on board? Well, sometimes they're unwilling because there's not the rollout. The rollout was defective to begin with. It was just something turned on. Google used to do that to us all the time. There'd be a brand new update, and we'd get yelled at by everybody in our district because we didn't even know it existed. Well, it's not like you're going to know every time they change something. So what is your processes you have for people to learn something new? Do you have automatically in place trainings going on with IT there as well? I think it's important to bring IT into those trainings when you're going over a new material or a new teaching, like Chris had mentioned. Is a review process of the material you're using. And being sure you set up those meetings accordingly, because IT then also learns the teacher's brain as to what they're struggling with. Most of the time in education, and I'm not trying to be crass to my own teaching world, but it's because something was moved on the screen. Okay, something was rearranged into a different location. But then it's also the basic understanding of what you're going to use that item for. A great example last group gave was Magic School AI. Did I get that wrong, Chris?
No, you got it right.
Woo, learning. Magic School AI was a tool. Are you all in the group here familiar with that at all? Okay. It's a great example of this process of intent to need. We've had teachers in different districts that have been using it, and then it gets to the IT department. Can it even be used? Well, what's going on with the student data in that? Chris was bringing up an example, or somebody else was in the other group, about people loading in information on student data and it's not secure. Well, now there's a paid level, by the way, which is great and it's supposed to secure the data and everything else. But by the time that gets to an IT department, you can have a lot of headaches or other issues. So it's important to be on that ground floor of that intent all the way up to need. Was evaluate AI added to an existing software application review process. Chris, do you want to take that one at all?
Yeah.
Megan, go ahead.
That's what we're working on right now, Megan, is, we don't want to change the process too much. We started over a year, well, it's been a year now, working with teachers in AI, and we didn't do anything initially. We just had a lot of conversations about, thinking about don't put personal data into any AI tool because all of them are unsafe. That's kind of how we started. That's starting to change now. There are safe ways to do this, safer ways to do this. And so we're just adding AI review to our regular software process. For new things, we haven't even begun to tackle how we're going to go back and adjust and adapt to all of our existing tools that are adding AI into themselves now. So I might need to hire somebody to help me with this, because I think this task is going to be monumental to go back to all the others and figure out how to, we have, God, if I were to guess right now, we have 300 approved apps right now. And so going back to all 300 and figuring out which of them added AI and are they doing it in a secure manner, that's going to be some real time. And we just haven't had a chance to start on that yet, or even think about it, to be honest.
That's an incredible amount of work. Yes, absolutely. Wow. So that kind of brings us to Megan. Did that answer your question, by the way? All right, thank you. Recommendations. I would hope that you could get on a cadence meeting with your IT department, or back and forth, if from teaching and learning or from IT back and forth. And again, if it's not the heads of your departments, is there lower level meetings that can be arranged without offending somebody? You obviously check with your organizations, but sometimes it's very important for, again, depending on your levels, you have a cabinet level, is what are some meeting cadence you can get on with each other to be sure you're discussing some of these issues, or getting ready to, is something being used or want to be used? Yeah, they're like, if they added it. Yeah, so true. Discussion that impact the end. Make sure you're having decisions that impact the end educator or student user that are made by IT should be discussed with teaching and learning so preparations can be made. This kind of goes, I think, a little bit to what Megan maybe was saying earlier, is sometimes people feel IT might be controlling things sometimes, or they're the gatekeeper, or vice versa, somebody else in a particular area. We've always had a standard belief in every area I've been from, if the end user, student or teacher, is impacted, the conversation has to have before something is turned off or on, because the end user has to know what to expect or be trained in it. Many times I'm a big dabbler, If it's not something of high impact, training may not be super important unless you're wanting that training to be an impact or a data-driven thing to drive your education. If it's a tool to benefit a teacher in their planning, they have lots of chances to learn on their own. If it's something you need them to be doing to drive data and instruction across the board, you cannot expect somebody to just be able to use it by just turning it on and say, okay, everybody use it. That has always been a fundamental problem of mine because the end user is impacted. So, Chris, you look like you're about to say something there. Are you good or?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Create a teacher request for apps and programs. Try to make this as quick a turnaround as possible. If you are a district that instantly has initially things turned quote off, I'm again speaking in layman terms, depending on how your district runs. I encourage you to have a very quick process for a turnaround for requests. Okay. Be sure that all data is protected and not allow programs until you're confident that it is. That's just huge in this AI process. And again, talking about that review in the past, it's even going to be harder. Work with teaching and learning on responsible use contracts and forms for stakeholders that may need to be used to cover use. Work with teaching and learning. I do believe that that's important as well. If a request cannot be made possible, make suggestions as to what may be. So if something's being asked for and you have a tool that you know of that you've already been managing in your district, can it be used in the same way with the proper training? And then do you have people to send out for that training or the ability to run that training? A lot of times we have redundant programs that get used because of someone's familiarity with it, rather than it's being effective or whether or not they're used to another program or could be used to it. That's a big one too. A lot of times in others. The other thing we did in Eatonville, and I don't, again, very small, hard to compare to the size districts you guys are from. We went with a very limited level at the district office level in terms of blocking or filtering. And then we allowed pretty much any Google for Ed app as a Google reference district. But then on our own, we also set up a GoGuardian system for in-district or in-building use. And teachers then could filter their own level to students if they were, one, not feeling comfortable enough trained with a program yet, or if they were afraid of certain, now again, we wouldn't let them block out things that we expect for curriculum and so on. But we offered tools to them to control their environment as well. That was another aspect that kind of took it off the IT department to be the gatekeeper. So running low on, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question around kind of what you all use for number 4, because we're talking about, right, kind of the AI chat GPT. So and I made a note. I haven't gone out to like ChatGPT's website to see if they do have a data privacy agreement published. So I'm just curious, since for things like that, you don't really need to create a user account, but even if you do, so how do you, as you evaluate the different software using your district to evaluate what that data privacy agreement is?
Well, so we make our best effort, to be honest. I can tell you that ChatGPT doesn't have a data privacy agreement, and I can't imagine that they're going to make one anytime soon. I can't even get them to call me back to try and sell me licenses. Luckily, they have a self-service Teams thing that I added a few of our staff to last week. But that didn't mean we're going to stop utilizing it. We're just going to be really careful. We have been pretty clear with our last year when we started with utilizing ChatGPT in the classroom, we made every parent sign a parent permission form for the kids that were doing it. This year we went to more of any kids 13 and over. We're comfortable with that right now. We still have conversations with our teachers and talk to them about don't put pressure.
I said, I don't know, ask Pete Phillips. Well, as people come back into the space, please do take a moment to complete the end of session survey. I'm sure you got the plug in your breakout room for doing it, but it is our tool that we'll use to synthesize your feedback. We'll obviously take your feedback from the Padlet spaces, but it really will inform our upcoming session, and just as we collaborate with our partners on thinking about the next continuum of resources available. So with that, is Travis, are you here? I know you were going to share a few additional resources as we close out.
I am here.
Great.
Thank you. I'm hoping my other screen is not sharing as well. So hopefully you're only seeing one screen at this moment. So
yeah, we just see the survey.
Perfect. Can we advance the slides here real quick for me, please? Thank you. And let's go one more, please. All right. So also available right now, I am, by the way, Travis Rush. I am the AESD Ed Tech lead. My role is to work with the ESD Ed Tech leads and deliver content statewide to make sure we deliver services to all students across the state in an even manner or in a most equitable manner possible. At the same time, we've been creating many AI resources for you. The 9 ESD leads have done a fabulous job. And on the screen in front of you right now is an AI resource guide for administrators. Jessica's going to drop the link there in the chat for us. This is a little resource guide we put together for you based on some of the information from this session and last session. A few of our sessions got cut off a little bit short during the timing. If you're in the middle of something engaged, I can speak to our own session we just had. Please feel free to email the person directly from your breakout room or myself, and I'll get that information to them, or anybody else from this session, to make sure we get your questions answered. It's really important that we don't leave you hanging right in the middle of a statement, especially. So also available in front of you is the OSPI release of the AI guidance. Again, that will be getting unpacked by everybody around the state, and especially by us as we move forward. A few of us here were members in helping with that editing and revising of that document, so we're very aware of it and content of it. And you'll be seeing many opportunities tied to that as we go forward, I would hope. And last but not least, there is a link on the right-hand side there for the ESDs and current available training attached to the AESD website. There is trainings from all over the state being offered by the fabulous ESD EdTech leads for opportunities to learn more about AI in the classroom, AI as a teacher, AI with UDL and IPP. Many opportunities for you to engage and earn clock hours or just training. So I encourage you to take a look at those those courses and those offerings and engage with the AI community of people learning as we all, this process of learning as we all go. So take advantage of those resources.
Okay, thanks, Travis. And as we look forward, we have a couple of additional statewide opportunities on the horizon. One, many of you already probably have on your calendars as district leaders, OSPI's statewide webinar. We've been doing quarterly webinars for the last couple of years, and this one is actually pretty timely. So today's event was timely with Superintendent Rakedall's release of the guidance. And February 13th, I'm guessing that there will be some additional time spent. You all will have had time to consume it, and you'll have some likely questions and reflections that you'll probably bring to the table. So the link is there. We'll be getting you the login information. We'll get you all of these slides so you have all the links following this session as well. And then also May 20th, we'll get that in our follow-up to you, a link to register for the third session of this statewide series. And by that point, we AESD, along with our partner sister organizations, will likely have some new opportunities on the horizon as we start thinking about the summer and the fall in terms of your own professional learning as leaders, as well as supporting your educators on that journey. So with that journey, the ESDs, along with a few school districts, are partnering with OSPI and the National NCCE Association, our technology folks with NCCE CCE to on a train the trainers cohort. And so we'll have teams participating and engaging in content there, ready to begin delivering that out into the field this summer and into the school year. So that's something we'll be able to share more with you about in May, as well as we enter into the spring. So with that, the next slide, I think we followed up with this. All of you should know, certainly your ESD superintendent, how to get a hold of them. So don't feel like you have to write down all these names and contacts, but you'll get this. These are your brain trust in your regional ESD organization as to who to reach out to for support in the AI space in the meantime. And if they don't know the answers or the resources, they have an amazing team of networked folks that they can reach out to. So their contact info is here. And then finally, just want to thank all of you again. Remember, please do complete the survey. The QR code is on the next slide, but also just really appreciate all of you for hanging in there with us on today's event. We will have all the sessions recorded. We'll get those into our YouTube playlist and out to you to share with your cadres and your leaders that couldn't make it today. So with that, I will close us down and just again appreciate the team that planned everything and all of you for leading through this exciting time of change for our world, I guess. It's bigger than education. So really thanks to all of you for being here and see you next time. Take good care.